Welcome, everybody, to the new episode, Life is What Is. So, welcome. We have a fun exploration today. Human concepts are relatively true as beliefs about life. Wait a minute, let me start over. Human concepts are relatively true as beliefs about life, but life is what is, not the concept of life. Each one of us is experiencing life, the finity of human concepts and the infinity of true being. Human thought cannot conceive the freedom and joy evolving from the awareness that the scientific real, or the spiritual, is the sensuous unreal, the material. To repeat, the reason for the search for truth or reality is because truth is forever demanding recognition, as are satisfaction and contentment. Truth can only teach you what truth is, and truth is individually revealed. When the time has come to give up yesterday's theories and concepts, to give up one's beliefs of value for value, the attempt to hold to the old will send one down the path of suffering. And suffering is a conflict within you between your belief of satisfaction and joy and satisfaction and joy. Your belief that a certain course of human action is wrong and the spiritual fact that human actions are never wrong make you emotionally unstable and insecure. Kind of like a billiard ball being jostled around by whatever things look like. We can't avoid a partial denial of truth outwardly, but inwardly in the realm of consciousness, truth is recognized to be the actuality of all that is meant by the terms God, man, and universe. The noblest qualities found in human character exist entirely outside of the personal me concept. Honesty, integrity, courage, devotion to truth must be identified with and as principle, God, instead of glorifying personality when these divine qualities are observable in what is called man. Now, that was all taken from Margaret Laird's work called What is the Idea, her pamphlet, and it was taken from pages 62 and 63. Welcome, Betty. How are you today?
Really fine. Thanks.
Excellent. Anything else you want to add into Life is What Is to set the stage before we just dive right in?
Right now, I don't have anything to add. Thanks.
Nothing to add. Okay, good. So if you are liking what we say, smash that like button or the thumbs up, any one of those. You can leave a comment as we go. We love to bring in comments. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment. And here we go. So, on What is the Idea on page 62, Margaret Laird wrote, the reason for the search for truth or reality is because truth is forever demanding recognition, as are joy, satisfaction, and contentment. Betty?
You want to hear from me on that? You know, we assume that we pursue what we're interested in. And actually, what we're interested in is what happens to be right in front of us. And what we really never quite are aware is that what's right in front of us is feedback telling us how we're being right now. So if we become self conscious, capital S on the self, we will know that what's going on right now is essential in identifying our well being. We don't like it or we do love it, or anything in between those two doesn't vary that fact. What's going on right now is exactly what we need to go on because it's what we're demanding of ourselves. So when we can leave it alone, it just keeps going on its merry way. If we resist it or argue with it, we're stuck with it until we let it go. When we let it go, it's gone, because the only thing holding it in place is you.
Yeah. Yeah. And for more discussion, when the time has come to give up yesterday's theories and concepts, to give up one's beliefs of value for value, the attempt to hold to the old will send one down the path of suffering. So the more you hold on to your beliefs, buckle up, because suffering is going to be there.
Yeah, and you know how we resist what we don't like? Guess what? As long as we resist it, it hangs right in there with us. It's when we lose interest in it, let it alone, it disappears.
Right.
We are the world we walk through. We're being that. Margaret used to say, you can't do anything about something you're always making.
Right.
Well, what's right in front of you is what you're making.
Yeah.
If you leave it alone, it disappears. If you fuss with it, you're stuck with it. I don't know how to say that any plainer, but it's said over and over in Margaret's writing. When you read, you leave it alone, it disappears.
Yep. Yeah, very good. Now, in Science and Health on page 202, starting on line 20, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, "The true way leads to life instead of to death. An earthly experience discloses the finity of error and the infinite capacities of truth."
Yeah, and why would it say the true way leads to life instead of to death?
Life with a capital L.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where joy, fulfillment
Because
is.
life is all there is.
Right.
Death is a concept,
Okay.
belief. It doesn't actually exist. It's always life presencing.
Right. Whether you like it or not.
Well, you don't get to vote.
Right.
You're making it as you go. It is what you say.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Now, in Mind is the Athlete on page 25, you wrote it this way, Betty. You said the leading question of what's real is what's really causative. So the leading question is what's really causative?
Mm-hmm. And I
And that's
wrote a note there.
the leading question. Could our conventional dependency on what's observable, the seen, heard, and felt of the physical world, be the flaw? Could our dependency on that? So how much do you rely on the picture around you, the circumstances, the language showing up for you to know how you are, how you're doing, how you feel?
Margaret used to say, you're just fine whether you know it or not.
Right. Yeah, you're happy whether you know it or not.
And you're doing exactly what you should be doing, whether you know it or not.
Right. Right.
And, there's that thing, we've quoted it before, there's a divinity that shapes our ends. So what we're doing is no accident. And even though we like to take credit for how we're doing,
Yep.
it's what we do whether we liked it or not.
Right.
So, just begin to see that you're not up to chance. You're not without guidance, stumbling around.
Mm-hmm.
And it may look that way. I don't know. Regardless of how it looks, what's really going on is that you have in your daily experience exactly the feedback that your awareness, your living of yourself consciously allows.
Yep.
So I have to look to myself. Who am I being?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in What is the Idea on page 63, Margaret Laird wrote, "The me that is full of desires to be good is not the me that is spirit."
Yeah, the human effort to be good doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's just a human effort fussing. And all of that doesn't do anything but persist whatever is currently present.
Right.
So in the realm of self-discovery, of discovering the facts, the truth for yourself, you have to let go of what your preferences are, what your druthers are, how you would really, really, really love to have it be, and recognize that love present is what's being right now.
Right.
And this is the way it looks, and walk on. It's the refusal to walk on that has whatever is present hang around and hang around and hang around until you think, oh, I'm so bored.
Yeah.
When you're bored, guess what? You're not present. You
Right.
might as well be sound asleep.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. A personal effort to become good instead of being the individual demonstration of good as conscious identity puts the cart before the horse and means prolonged suffering.
Yep, it does. Personal efforting always means prolonged suffering. And suffering doesn't mean that you hurt. It just means you're not present. You're floundering. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now on page 202, line 26, Mary Baker Eddy in Science and Health wrote, "We admit that God has almighty power is a very present help in trouble."
Yeah, we admit that God has the power.
Right. And yet we rely on drug or hypnotism to heal disease as if senseless matter had more power than an omnipotent spirit.
Yeah. You know, the thing is, it gets tricky to me, it seems, because we have at our disposal a whole universe that says that health is the reality. It says good actions supersede bad actions. We live in a world of paradox where we have right and wrong and good and bad and rich and poor and all the rest of that stuff. But when we look at what Mrs. Eddy has taught us, all is infinite mind. It's our refusal to allow that intelligence to be in charge and get our personal view of what's good or what's right or what's true in the way of looking at what's actually present and saying, I don't know why it looks like this, but I know that truth present is all that's functioning in right now.
Right.
So it's a discipline to live with science.
Yeah.
You know, I remember Margaret pointed out many times, lots of times, in her writing and in her lectures and seminars, that when you look around, the answer is always present. The answer to whatever comes up is always present. But we differentiate our human living saying, well, it's not that. That couldn't be the answer.
Right.
And in doing that, what we're doing is buying a belief, the view that we're looking at, as if it were or were not. And actually, what is truth present. And what's not is believing that the way I see it is the way it is. So I have to be willing to allow it to be, assuming perhaps that my seeing of it may not look that way.
Right.
But nothing else is present. All is infinite mind. So when I let go of the argument with myself, the truth is all that's present. And on we go. Yeah.
And in your book, Mind is the Athlete, on page 26, you wrote, an acknowledgement of the fundamental facts calls them into being in appropriate human language.
Yep.
So it's all about acknowledgement.
That's right. And when you have a need and something comes up, you say, well, that's not the answer. I don't dare use that.
Right.
I don't dare indulge in that. I don't dare invite that in. No, not that. And so you wait. It's like that story about the guy that wanted help.
I was just going to say that. No, I don't need the lifeboat. No, I don't need the helicopter. Me and God, we got it worked out.
Yep.
That's that joke. Yeah, totally.
And then she goes down.
Yep. He ends up at the pearly gates and he said, God, what happened? We had a deal. He said, well, I sent you a lifeboat and a helicopter and, whatever. So it's, yeah. So, so an acknowledgement of the fundamental facts calls them into being in appropriate human language. And that puts problems into their true perspective by resolving them. So you always have to be listening, be open.
Yep.
Okay.
Gotta be willing.
Yep, be willing. I like that. What is the idea on page 63? Margaret Laird says, man eats, walks, talks, plays, walks, suffers, and enjoys himself as thinking, idea as perception.
Yeah, that's what thinking is, ideas as perception.
Okay.
See, my perception is the world I walk through.
Right. And the living of this fact and the understanding frees mankind from the belief that lives as person to suffer and die. Right? That goes with idea as perception. Anything you want to add there?
No, I guess not.
Okay. All right. Fine. And in Science and Health on page 203, starting on line 7, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, if God were understood instead of being merely believed, this understanding would establish health. Now, my question is this, Mom, should health be capital H?
Yeah, and actually it doesn't make any difference. There's only one health.
Right. Okay. All right. Anything else on that you'd like to say?
Yeah, like, for instance, you might say you have a cold.
Right.
Say you're looking at health.
Yeah. And this is what it looks like.
That's
Sniffle,
right.
sniffle.
Well, it's all right. Whatever. But I notice it doesn't stop you.
No, at least not right now. All right. Now, in Mind is the Athlete on page 27, you wrote, your acknowledgement alone, that consciousness, non-visible spirit, pre-exists and generates all human language forms, is causative.
Yeah. And you could shorten that sentence if you said your acknowledgement alone is causative.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I remember having a discussion with somebody several years ago who said, you know, I can say those words, those acknowledgement words, you know, all is infinite mind, divine love is the only presence, you know, but that doesn't make it true. I said, nothing you do makes it true.
Right.
It's truth stating itself. And your human stuff with it, thinking about, do I make it true? No. Do I make it not true? No. That kind of an I is the personal sense of yourself.
Right.
Mrs. Eddy says there's only one I, and it's the God being.
Right.
So God being shows up looking just like this.
Yep. And
when I find fault, it's because I'm hung up with the way it looks.
Yep.
And forgetting what's really present.
Right.
It's like saying all is infinite mind, and in the ether somewhere it's saying, let's see if she really believes that. So then they show up with a picture. You say, well, not that. I thought so. She doesn't believe all is infinite mind at all.
Right. Yeah, it's but there's how strong are you really holding to your belief? And that's when it gets to understanding and acknowledgement, being willing, and continuously letting go of your belief, because it's not about belief. It's what Mary Baker Eddy said, is that if God were understood instead of being merely believed, this understanding would establish health.
Because understanding is the presence of health.
Yeah. So it's not about belief. It's about understanding. It's about acknowledgement. It's about being willing.
Well, and the word consciously has to be there somewhere.
Okay.
Because, of course, the fact, the divine being, is all that's present.
Right. So well, it sounds like acknowledgement is the conscious, non-visible spirit,
which shows up as what we call visible.
Right.
You know, it is interesting to me that we think visible means human seeing, when actually all that's present is our visibility.
Right.
It's what we have that represent for ourselves.
Right.
When you recognize that all is infinite mind, oh, this is the dress God's wearing today, in other words.
Right.
Oh, okay, on we go.
Right.
But we look and we say, no, it's not. You know, right. You mean that over there? Oh, no, that's not it.
Right.
But all is infinite mind. How you see it is up to you.
Right.
What you are seeing is up to you. Where you're seeing is up to you. Check your seeing. All is infinite mind. This is the way it looks. Okay.
Right.
Because you're standing in all is infinite mind. Oh, okay. On we go.
Yep.
The argument you give yourself holds you at the level of fighting through it, figuring it out.
Struggle and effort.
Yeah, it's an efforting thing.
Yeah.
Allow it to be. Whatever the picture suggests, allow it to be.
Right.
When you can allow it to be, you keep yourself open to the recognition that what's actually present may not look like this to anybody else. Right. My seeing of it is just my seeing of it.
Right. Right. And I would say this manifests as a self-fulfilling expansion of awareness, that acknowledgement, that understanding.
Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling expansion of awareness. My own acknowledgement is my expanding awareness.
Yeah.
And it's limitless. It goes from A to Z. It goes all, there's no limit to the freedom present when you stay with the facts.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, very good. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode today. We will see you all next week, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. And share, subscribe. There's no questions that I see. So share, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to YouTube, please subscribe and leave your comments. Anyways, have a great week. Live in the understanding, practice acknowledgement, look and see what shows up. And whether you like it or not, doesn't matter. All right. We'll see you next week.